At exactly 11:03 on a rainy Thursday night, my phone vibrated on the kitchen table. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another spam notification or a late-night work email. But when I glanced at the screen, my heart skipped a beat. The message was from my neighbor, Emily. We had lived across from each other for almost 4 years, exchanging friendly waves, helping each other shovel snow in winter, and occasionally bringing homemade food across the street. Her text was only 8 words long, but they carried a weight that instantly made the room feel colder. My husband's asleep. Are you free to talk? I stared at those words for what felt like forever. Something about them didn't feel ordinary. They weren't flirtatious or mysterious. They sounded desperate. They sounded like someone quietly drowning while trying not to wake the rest of the world. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, compassion, and second chances can truly change lives, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more heartfelt stories that remind us humanity still exists. I replied with a simple yes. Within seconds, another message appeared. Emily asked if I could meet her on the front porch because she didn't want to wake her husband or their little daughter sleeping upstairs. I grabbed my jacket and stepped into the cool night. Rain softly tapped against the pavement while the neighborhood rested in peaceful silence. The only light came from a porch lamp outside Emily's house. She stood there wrapped in a gray sweater, arms folded tightly around herself as though trying to hold together pieces of a life that had quietly begun falling apart. As I walked closer, I immediately noticed how exhausted she looked. Her eyes carried the unmistakable weight of countless sleepless nights. Her smile, usually warm and welcoming, had disappeared. She wasn't crying, but she looked like someone who had run out of tears long ago. She thanked me for coming before saying she simply needed someone to listen because she didn't know who else to turn to anymore. Emily began telling me about the last 18 months. Her husband, Daniel, had once been cheerful, ambitious, and deeply devoted to their family. Then the company where he had worked for nearly 15 years suddenly closed. At first, everyone believed he would quickly find another job because of his experience. Weeks became months. Interviews led nowhere. Savings slowly disappeared. Bills piled higher. Each rejection quietly chipped away at his confidence until the man Emily had married barely recognized himself. The financial pressure wasn't even the hardest part. Watching Daniel slowly lose hope was far more painful. He became quieter every week. He stopped laughing with their daughter. He avoided family gatherings because he felt embarrassed answering questions about work. He convinced himself he had failed everyone he loved. Emily tried encouraging him every single day, but even the strongest words struggled against the heavy silence of depression. She admitted she had been pretending everything was fine whenever neighbors waved or friends asked how life was going. Social media showed smiling family photos while inside their home anxiety filled every room. Their daughter, Lily, only 6 years old, had started asking innocent questions that quietly broke both parents' hearts. She wondered why Daddy didn't smile anymore, or why he never played soccer in the backyard like he used to. Emily confessed something that still echoes in my memory. She said loneliness can exist even when you're sitting beside someone you love every day. She wasn't angry with Daniel. She wasn't giving up on him. She simply felt terrified because she no longer knew how to help the person who had always protected everyone else. For nearly 2 hours we sat on that porch while rain gently fell around us. I didn't offer magical advice because none existed. I simply listened. Sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't solving someone's problem. Sometimes it's making sure they don't carry it alone. Before returning home, I promised Emily that whatever happened, neither she nor Daniel had to face this season by themselves. She smiled for the first time that night. It wasn't a big smile, but it was enough to let a little hope return. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. I realized how easily people hide their pain behind ordinary routines. From outside, Emily and Daniel looked like any happy family on our quiet street. Yet behind closed doors, they were fighting battles invisible to everyone else. That weekend, I invited Daniel over under the excuse of needing help fixing my old lawn mower. At first, he politely declined, saying he wasn't really in the mood. I gently insisted, explaining that I genuinely couldn't figure it out myself. Eventually, he came over. The mower barely mattered. What mattered was giving him a reason to step outside his own thoughts. We spent the afternoon tightening bolts, drinking coffee, and talking about everything except unemployment. For the first time in months, according to Emily later, Daniel laughed at one of my terrible jokes. It wasn't much, but it was the first crack in the wall he had built around himself. Over the following weeks, we started small traditions. Every Tuesday evening, we walked around the neighborhood together. Every Saturday morning, we worked on little home improvement projects. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we simply walked in comfortable silence. Slowly, I noticed tiny changes. Daniel made more eye contact. His shoulders weren't constantly slumped. He even started kicking a soccer ball around with Lily again. One afternoon, he finally admitted something he had hidden from everyone. He wasn't afraid of being unemployed anymore. He was afraid people would only remember him as a failure. Those words revealed how deeply shame had settled inside him. Society often teaches people to measure their worth by their paycheck, but human value has never depended on a job title. I reminded him of everything he still was. He was a loving father, a faithful husband, a loyal friend, a man who had spent years helping others without expecting anything back. Losing a job hadn't erased any of those qualities. Around the same time, a local community center announced they needed volunteers to renovate an old youth building. I asked Daniel if he'd help me for just one weekend. He hesitated before agreeing. That weekend changed everything. Working alongside dozens of volunteers reminded Daniel that kindness still existed. Nobody cared about resumes or salaries. Everyone simply wanted to build something meaningful together. Daniel's years of maintenance experience quickly became invaluable. Soon he was leading repair projects, teaching younger volunteers how to safely use equipment, and solving problems others couldn't figure out. People constantly thanked him. They respected his knowledge. They appreciated his patience. For the first time in over a year, Daniel felt useful again. A member of the volunteer team happened to own a regional construction company. After watching Daniel work for several weekends, he quietly asked if Daniel would be interested in interviewing for a project management position opening the following month. Daniel almost turned it down because he doubted himself. Emily encouraged him. I encouraged him. Even little Lily hugged him and said she believed Daddy could do anything. He attended the interview. Then came another long week of waiting. Finally, on a bright Monday morning, Emily knocked on my front door with tears streaming down her face. My heart immediately sank because I feared the worst. Instead, she threw her arms around me and whispered that Daniel got the job. Not only had he been hired, but the company had been searching for someone with exactly his experience and leadership skills. What Daniel believed had become his greatest weakness had actually become his greatest strength. The months that followed weren't magically perfect. Financial recovery took time. Confidence returned slowly rather than overnight. Healing rarely happens in dramatic moments. It grows quietly through ordinary days filled with patience, support, and hope. Daniel continued volunteering even after starting work. He said he never wanted to forget the place where strangers reminded him of his worth when he couldn't see it himself. Emily looked different too. The exhaustion faded from her eyes. Her smile became genuine again. Their home, once filled with silent worry, slowly echoed with laughter. One evening nearly a year after that unforgettable text message, Emily invited several neighbors over for a simple backyard barbecue. Children ran across the grass while adults shared food and stories beneath glowing string lights. Daniel grilled hamburgers while laughing louder than I'd heard in years. Lily chased bubbles across the yard, her laughter mixing with warm summer air. As the evening ended, Emily quietly thanked me again. I gently reminded her that I hadn't rescued anyone. She had been the one fighting every single day beside her husband. Daniel had been the one brave enough to stand back up after life knocked him down. I had only answered a late-night text. That night, walking back across the street toward my own house, I looked at both homes standing peacefully beneath the stars. It struck me how one simple decision, to answer a message instead of ignoring it, had become part of a much larger story. We often imagine life-changing moments arriving with dramatic music and extraordinary events. More often they arrive disguised as ordinary opportunities to care about another human being. There are countless people quietly carrying burdens invisible to the rest of us. The smiling cashier, the friendly coworker, the neighbor who always waves, the parent cheering at a school event. They may all be fighting battles they never speak about. A kind conversation, a listening ear, or simply showing up can become the turning point they desperately need. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, Share it with someone who could use a little hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps these stories reach people who may be silently struggling right now. Special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment with the words "Kindness changes lives" if you believe one small act of compassion can completely change someone's future. Even today, whenever my phone vibrates late at night, I remember that rainy Thursday. I remember the fear hidden inside 8 simple words. I remember how close one family came to losing hope, not because they lacked love, but because they felt alone. Most importantly, I remember that none of us are expected to carry life's heaviest burdens by ourselves. Years later, Daniel often mentors people who have unexpectedly lost their jobs. Emily volunteers at support groups for spouses, caring for loved ones struggling with depression and anxiety. Lily, now older, tells people her father is her hero, not because he never fell, but because he found the courage to stand up again. Their family didn't become perfect. They became stronger, more compassionate, and more grateful for every ordinary day they shared together. Whenever neighbors gather on our street now, I often see Daniel helping someone repair a fence, carrying groceries for an elderly resident, or teaching neighborhood kids how to fix bicycles. Every act of kindness he offers carries the memory of the kindness once shown to him. Hope has a remarkable way of multiplying. One caring conversation becomes another. One helping hand inspires dozens more. That single text message at 11 o'clock on a rainy night didn't just save one conversation. It reminded me that every person we meet may be silently asking the same question in one form or another. Are you free to talk? Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person isn't money, advice, or perfect answers. Sometimes it's simply being present, listening without judgment, and reminding them they are not facing the darkness alone. Because in the end, kindness rarely changes the whole world overnight. But for one family, one neighbor, or one lonely soul searching for hope, it can change their entire world forever.